Hello and welcome. This is Patrick Engelkes, and today I'm going to talk about our first mini project. Since I'm not allowed to show you the solutions, I chose another example and will show you the concepts you need to finish the first mini project. As example, I chose Formula 1, and we are going to convert the names of the drivers to their placements in the last Grand Prix, which was in 2013 in Sao Paulo. Sebastian Vettel finished first, Nico Rosberg second, and Fernando Alonso finished third. I'm going to type this down here so that you can remember this easier. First was Sebastian Vettel, second Nico Rosberg, and third Fernando Alonso. Okay, let's start with converting the names of the drivers to their appropriate placement. For this we'll define a function, and let's call this name to placement. The function needs the name of the driver as a parameter, so let's call it name of driver. And what we want to do now is we want to compare the name of the driver to each of these strings. So let's compare name of driver to Sebastian Vettel first. And if name of driver equals Sebastian Vettel, we want to return the placement of Sebastian Vettel, which is the 1 in this case. So we say return, we say if name of driver equals Sebastian Vettel, then we want to return the 1. Now we will use an else if statement, but this else if statement is only called if name of driver equals Sebastian Vettel is false, after we jump into this statement. So we want to compare name of driver to Nico Rosberg. Okay, and if name of driver equals Nico Rosberg, we want to return the tip, because he finished second. Actually, I didn't make these names strings, so let me fix this. Okay, now that's right. Now we want to have another else if statement, which will only be called if this is false and this is false. Then we'll jump into this statement. So we want to compare name of driver to Fernando Alonso. If that's true, we want to return the 3. And in the end we have another else statement, which is called if all of these 3 statements are wrong. And this will show us if we entered a wrong driver name. So if we didn't enter one of these 3 names, this string will be returned. So we say you entered a wrong driver name. Okay, I forgot the double points, and I think that's it for this function. Now we want to test this function. How do we do it? We will take 4 variables and assign them to name, to placement, and the different names we have. So we say driver1 is name to placement of Sebastian Vettel. This we do the same for driver2, where we assign the placement of Nico Rosberg. Same for driver3. Assign the placement of Fernando Alonso, and in the end we want to test if our helper statement works too, so we will enter a wrong driver name. So let's call it driver wrong is name to placement of Lewis Hamilton, who finished 5th in this race, by the way. And now we are going to print these statements and see if we get the expected result. So print driver1, driver2, driver3, and driver wrong. Now what do we expect? Driver1 should equal the 1, driver2 should equal 2, driver3 the 3, and Lewis Hamilton, so driver wrong, should equal you entered a wrong driver name. Let's see if that's correct. No, it's not. Okay, let's fix this little mistake here, and now it should work. 1, 2, 3, and you entered a wrong driver name. Perfect. That's what we wanted. Now we want to do it the other way around. We want to convert the placement to the name. So we need a new function for this, and let's say we call it placement to name, and the parameter is actually the placement of the driver now. So for this function we can use the same construct as we used in the function above, but we have to not to compare name of driver, but we have to compare placement of driver. And we won't compare placement of driver to the strings, but to the actual positions of the driver. So let's start. If placement of driver equals 1, so that's the position of Sebastian Vettel, we want to return the string of Sebastian Vettel. Okay? Now we have another else if statement. It's the same logic as in this function. Else if is only called if placement of driver is wrong. So else if placement of driver equals 2, we want to return Nico Rosberg. Now we have to do it for placement number 3, which should return Fernando Alonso. Okay, and the last else statement, again to check if we entered a right placement of driver. If not, we want to return you entered a wrong placement. Okay, that's it for this function, and we want to test it nearly the same way as we did it for the name to placement, but we have to replace these strings with actual positions. So let's do this. And we call our variables placement 1 to 3 now. Okay, placement to name of position 1. Placement 2 is placement to name 2. Now we do this for the third placement. And in the end we test our wrong placement. I take the 5 here because Lewis Hamilton finished 5th and it's consistent. And let's print our variables now and see if we get the expected result. Okay, what do we expect now? First we expect Sebastian Vettel, after Nico Rosberg, then Fernando Alonso, and in the end you entered the wrong placement. Okay? Here we go. Everything correct. Sebastian Vettel, Nico Rosberg, Fernando Alonso, and you entered the wrong placement. Okay, we are nearly done. Just one function is missing. Now we want to have a function where we have the name of the driver as parameter, and we want to compare the position of this driver to a random position. So let's call this function compare placement, and we have to enter the name of driver. Okay, what do we have to do first here? First we have to convert the name of the driver to his actual position. So let's call it placement. No. Let's call it driver placement is name to placement. This parameter we take name of driver. So here we have a variable which is assigned to name to placement name of driver. So we jump into this function name to placement, and name of driver is compared to these 3 strings. So if it's one of these 3 strings, we get these different return statements. So for Sebastian Vettel we get 1 and so on. Okay, now that we have done this, we want to get a random placement. How do we do this? I'm not really sure, so let's look it up in the documentation. You can open it here and search for random. Okay, here we have the function random_randrange, which we will use here. Random.randrange 0 to 4. Okay, the 0 is included in this one and the 4 is excluded. This means that this function will produce numbers from 0 to 3, but that is actually false. We only want numbers from 1 to 3. So the first number is included and the last one is excluded. Okay. And what do we want to do now? If random placement and driver placement are the same, we have a tie. If driver placement is smaller than random placement, you win. If random placement is smaller than driver placement, you lose. So how do we do this? We start with another if and say if driver placement equals random placement, we want to return we have a tie. Okay, now we have to use an else if statement, which is exactly the same as we did before, and it follows the same logic. So driver placement is smaller than random placement, then we want to return you win. Another else if statement where we say that driver placement is bigger than random placement, and we want to return you lose. Okay. Now, what happens if we enter a wrong name of driver? We get you entered a wrong driver name. So we can't really compare a string to an integer, so we need to test if we have a wrong driver name. How can we do this? We know driver placement is you entered a wrong driver name if we do this. So we can say if driver placement is not this string here, so let's copy it, it's quite long. Then we want to do this block, but that's wrong in the indentation here, so let me change this quick. This should work now. Okay, so this function is only called, or this block here is only called if we enter a right driver, a right name of driver, sorry. Okay, now we want to test this too. How do we do this? Let's print it out here directly. So we say print compare placement, and let's say Sebastian Vettel, print compare placement Nico Rosberg, and print compare placement Fernando Alonso. Okay, to test if we did everything correct, we should print the random placement here so that we can see if the function does what we expect. Print random placement. That's it. Now, to use the random function, you need to import it, so you type import random. So, you know, the program knows the random function. Okay, let's run it. Okay, first random number was a 2, so we win. Second was a 2, so we have a tie. And third was a 3, so we have another tie. Okay, that's it. I hope this will help you to finish your mini project, and see you next week.